Hi, I'm Dan Lagani with Silver Solutions, the senior-focused home services company, and welcome to the latest episode of AgeWise. Our goal with each episode is to make you and your loved ones a little smarter about all the things you'll need to know as you grow older. Today, we focus on the trends in caregiving. Last month, we sat down with our guest, Scott Greenberg. Scott is not only a best-selling author and a radio talk show host, he's also the operator of one of the largest home health agencies in America, based in South Florida. So if you or your loved one are interested in what you'll need to know about caregiving for an older adult in the next year, this is an episode not to be missed here on the latest AgeWise. Scott Greenberg, welcome back to AgeWise.
It's good to be back, Dan. Thanks for inviting me.
You know, Scott, a couple of things. The first one is that our very first episode of AgeWise was 3 years ago in September of 20, and you were our first guest. And you're actually the first guest we've had back for a second time. So kind of a homecoming of sorts for us. Great to have you here.
Well, the first thing I want to say is since that first visit, you've really done a remarkable job of bringing great information to your audience. I watch every episode, and the guests have been unbelievably informative, and I commend you for doing that. And as far as my coming back, I guess you're a glutton for punishment.
Well, I'm honored. So part of what is momentous at this point here is, Scott, you've been doing your radio program weekly based on the book you wrote, Oh My God, I'm Getting Older and So Is My Mom. And I think you said for 12 years? So how many guests over that period of time have you had on the show?
So I think I've had upwards of 400 guests. We've done almost 500 episodes, all still archived and available. It's been an amazing journey, especially given the fact that I didn't think it would last 6 weeks. 12 years was never in my vision. So it's been quite the run.
What's changed over the last 12 years in terms of topics and issues that are facing an aging population?
Well, there's a host of them. I think the emergence of Medicare Advantage as opposed to Medicare, traditional red, white, and blue Medicare, that is a big subject. A lot of people are electing Medicare Advantage, not fully understanding what they're giving up. So I think that's big. At the lower end of the economic scale, Florida is one of only 10 states that hasn't, I think it's 10, that hasn't expanded Medicaid. And as costs have risen, access to healthcare gets increasingly limited. So the expansion of Medicaid would open the door to better healthcare for many people at the lower end of the economic spectrum. COVID changed a lot. The entire conversation around senior living is a conversation that has significantly evolved. People are going into senior living communities later than they ever have. The CCRC business model is interesting, but if you wait too long, you kind of let that opportunity pass. So there's a lot of things that have changed.
You know, you mentioned something a second ago with respect to the state of Florida and Medicaid. Are we at a point in Florida where what was once really a retirement mecca is growing, but not necessarily with retirees? Is it still a retirement-friendly state? And if it's not, what does that mean for the decade ahead for the state of Florida?
So I think that that's a great question and something that we could talk about for hours, no doubt. But I do think it is still a retirement-friendly location, albeit it is much more expensive now than it was 12 years ago when we first went into business down here in the home care space. Costs have escalated, rents are going up, assisted and independent living costs are accelerating, medical care costs more. All of these things are putting strain on people's budgets, but it is still senior-friendly in the sense that it is built to accommodate the needs of seniors. Just for example, more handicap parking, better ADA accessibility, all of those things help undoubtedly. And let's face it, the weather isn't terrible either. It's you don't shovel sunshine. So there's still an opportunity for seniors to do very well down here. I read an article right before we came on air about states and how much it costs to live a comfortable retirement. And Florida still fares pretty well. I'm not sure Palm Beach County, where I sit, falls into that category, but around the state, you can do that.
The first thing that I want to get to, which is really the spirit of the book you wrote, Oh My God, I'm Getting Older and So Is My Mom, which is helpful information and insights for family members. How do you broach the topic with an aging parent that the time is right for them to get help at home? Because I have to imagine that's not something that most older adults say, I can't wait until I have a home health aide coming over. So what's your advice to a family member that has a mom or a dad that may be 80 or 80 and above, that it's time to get mom or dad some help? What are the keys to think about, and how do you present the information?
Well, I typically begin with getting help improves your level of independence. It doesn't remove your level of independence. When you eat healthier, when your hygiene is improved, when your exercise is more frequent and consistent, when you are not struggling to do things that you can no longer do, your quality of life improves at every level. Obviously, your health improves, your hygiene improves, but you get out, you have more energy, you have somebody to talk to. All of these things improve the quality of life. So getting help isn't the beginning of the end of your independence. It is actually the beginning of the restoration of your independence. And that's a critical component. But there are more things that really need to be reviewed. The average adult child lives 287 miles away from their parent. It doesn't matter how much you love your mom or dad, you just can't be there. I can't drop everything all at once, hop on a plane and come down to help you when you fall. So what we're trying to do is to give you the opportunity to live your best life possible. So I go back to, it's not the end of your independence, it is the beginning of the restoration. And when you understand that, it does go a little better. Look, the conversation is, as I said earlier, I don't want any help. I don't need any help. Leave me alone. I can do it myself. It migrates into, if you make me do this, I'll do it, but I won't make anybody happy. But pretty soon it does turn into, this isn't so bad after all. And finally it emerges as, how did I ever live without this? I think that's a really important conversation. And it's a struggle that I deal with, and I know that you do on a regular basis. The roles reverse. Mom was always mom. Now you're making decisions for mom. You're replacing mom in that chain. And so you're telling mom what to do. Nobody's comfortable with that. It's hard. It's not easy.
How has technology changed not just home health agencies, but when you think about the guests you've had on your program over the last decade, how has it changed the process of growing older in the country? And what technological innovations are you most fascinated by that you think hold the greatest promise?
So I'm of two minds here. There is some technology that has become invaluable. The iPhone, iWatch, the ability to communicate through text, through FaceTime, the iWatch being able to monitor certain signals, fluid checks, etc. Those are all wonderful. Automatic medication dispensers, help I've fallen and I can't get up, fall detection devices. All of that is incredible technological advances that improve someone's ability to live their best life possible. On the other side, we're at a time and place where technology is in search of a marketplace. And you have to be careful that technology isn't being used in places it really doesn't work. You don't want Rosie from the Jetsons changing mom's diaper. All right. That still takes a human touch because it is a dehumanizing event for many people. So high touch can't be replaced by high tech. And so I think that is the challenge coming down the road for us, because the technologists, and there are many, and they're great, and they want to do wonderful things, are more interested in the technology than they are in the high touch component part of that. Until that happens, I think it's going to be a slower transition than people give it credit for.
What's the role of government when it comes to an aging population? What do you think they do well? Let's start there.
So I think a prime example of what they do well was COVID. They distributed COVID vaccines incredibly well. The information flow was terrific. Accessibility and availability was handled very well. I think, you know, what government doesn't do well is another book, because we're not there, and I'm not finding fault with anybody, but they don't have the financial resources to build the infrastructure they need in order to offer the most services to as many people as need it. I think important to know, Dan, here is that there is a place for-profit components of that. We donate. We ourselves do 20 support groups a month between Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, for family members, and they're totally free of charge.
Talk about that, Scott. What do those look like? If I had a family member that was dealing with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's and I were attending, is it for the family member or is it for the affected older adult? And what kinds of things do you tackle in those meetings?
So in the case of Alzheimer's disease, it is not for the person struggling with the disease, because that's a tough conversation depending upon where they are in the continuum. For Parkinson's, it is for both family members and for people struggling with the disease. I would say it's almost reversed. 80% of the people in the Parkinson's support groups are people struggling with Parkinson's disease. There's almost none in the Alzheimer's groups. What we try to do is to give people an opportunity to talk to each other about their common challenges. In both Alzheimer's and in the Parkinson's support groups, we bring experts on from various disciplines. So we might bring a senior placement specialist on to talk to the audience if there's somebody with Alzheimer's and they're contemplating memory care. Parkinson's, what's the difference between assisted living and independent living? So we can bring specialists there. We bring elder law attorneys on those support groups. We bring all sorts of specialists from the various support agencies that they can access help from. It's been very helpful, and frankly, they're growing exponentially. We're, as I said, doing 20 of them now. But look, family members, caregiving's hard, right? I mean, caregiving on a professional level is hard. Caregiving on a family level is that much harder. The caregiver stress is real. It affects the quality of your health. It affects your ability to be the caregiver that you want to be. And it adds challenges that most people are unprepared for.
Let's end on a sort of a future-focused question. If you were speaking to a college class about the issues facing an aging America and the topics that we need to address in the decade ahead, or the best career opportunities for a smart entrepreneur, what area of elder care would you say that they should be focused on?
Well, I think the hot topic, for the government, and I don't know who's going to find the solution and what the solution is long-term care. People are living longer. The fastest growing demographics are centenarians or those over 85. As the boomers who turned 65 starting on 12, 13, 15 years ago, they're starting to turn to 75. Soon they're going to be 85. We have 20+% of our population over the age of 65. That isn't going to get less anytime soon. So figuring out how to pay for long-term care or how to provide long-term care in a cost-effective manner, if somebody can solve that problem, that would be great. In terms of the entrepreneur, look, I have a kid in college, grandson in college, and I talk to him all the time about this. I think you have to be careful that you don't allow, as we said earlier, technology to overwhelm the high-touch aspect of care for the elderly. Medical access, I think, is critical. There's going to be drastic changes. Skilled nursing facilities. People used to have a hip replaced and go into skilled nursing for 4, 5, 6, or 7 days. Today, it's outpatient. You go home. So you got to figure out how to help people navigate the challenges of aging in the most cost-effective way. So if people can figure that out, if they can unlock the answer to those questions, they will be very successful. And obviously, becoming a doctor is still not the worst thing that could ever happen. You know? I mean, if you're inclined, doctors are doing pretty well today.
Indeed, and growing in importance for sure. Scott Greenberg of ComForCare of South Florida, senior advocate, author, and the radio host of Oh My God, I'm Getting Older, and So Is My Mom. Thanks so much for joining us today and for making us all a little bit smarter about some of the things that matter as both we and our loved ones grow older. I'm Dan Lagani, and for all of us at Silver Solutions, thanks so much for joining us. If you liked today's episode, please share it with a friend. If you want to find back episodes, you can go to silversolutions.com and click on the video tab. You can also subscribe so you'll get every new episode as they come out on the Apple Podcast platform. For all of us here at Silver Solutions who work hard every day to make growing older safer and easier, stay safe and be wise.